Welcome to the ultimate guide to sleep optimization. Did you know that sleep impacts everything from your mood to your productivity and even your long-term health? In this short video, we will break down the science of sleep and share some practical, evidence-based tips to help you start to sleep better tonight. And if you don't see a change after implementing these steps to your sleep, well, then it's time to dig a little deeper. These are foundational steps so that you can start to sleep better, perform better, get rid of the brain fog, and do all of those things. But if it's not happening with these simple tips, then there is something that needs to be uncovered and taken care of. But before we begin, please hit the subscribe button down below. It helps us spread the message of good health to others, and it doesn't cost you a thing. Why is sleep so important? Well, during sleep, your brain processes information, consolidates memories, and clears out toxins. Your body has something called the glymphatic system, and that is what goes into the brain and opens it up and allows cerebral spinal fluid to start to circulate through the brain, and it allows you to clear out the tau. It allows you to clear out the damaged proteins so that the brain is clean and more efficient. Sleep not only helps with the brain, but it also regulates the hormones, boosts your immune system, and poor sleep is linked to stress and weight gain and even conditions like heart disease. The National Sleep Foundation recommends 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night for adults, but it's the quality of sleep that matters, not just the quantity. And in studies, that sleep has been shown to be plus or minus 30 minutes. So if you look at 8 hours, it's 8.5 to 7.5. That sleep should also be unaided. You shouldn't have to take things like melatonin or even some of the prescription sleep aids, because that's not true sleep. True sleep is when you go to sleep unaided, you can stay asleep, and then you wake up without prompting. But the definition of sleep is when your eyes are closed, you can't really do anything, but you can be aroused. If you're knocked out by medication, it's really no different than being knocked out by a bat. You cannot be aroused. And to optimize sleep, it also might help to realize or to understand the sleep cycle. And basically, your body sleeps in 90-minute segments, and it moves through light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep. And REM sleep is the stage of sleep where you dream. Deep sleep is where the body does all of that metabolic cleaning and deep cleaning and brain cleaning and all of that stuff. That's the deep sleep stage. So it's very important. And deep sleep usually happens at the very beginning of the sleep cycle, while REM sleep boosts creativity and memory. Timing your sleep to complete cycles around 7.5 to 9 hours can help you wake up refreshed. That means that when you are going to wake yourself with an alarm clock, kind of look at when you're going to go to sleep and when you're going to wake up, and try to do that in segments of 90 minutes. And try to wake yourself up on the backside or the finishing of a sleep cycle. So let's take a minute and talk about creating the perfect sleep environment, because this matters a lot. So now we need to talk about creating the perfect sleep environment. And so we're going to talk about the bedroom. And the bedroom is for sleep and sex. That's it. If you have a television in there, that is the worst thing in the world you can have in your bedroom. As a matter of fact, when we start to talk about winding down, we'll talk about the TV a little more. But let's talk about the bedroom real quick. The bedroom should be clean and clear of clutter. It should be dark. You should not be able to see your hand in front of your face. The temperature of your bedroom should be between 60 and 67 degrees. That's been shown as to what is optimal and the ideal sleeping temperature. That just helps the body cool down. It helps you get into that deep sleep. And so, once again, between 60 and 67. Reduce the noise. And so, if you can hear the kids, if the spouse goes out and watches television, either have a white noise generator Wear earplugs. I'm not an earplug guy, but have those things available so that you can muffle out anything that makes your brain want to think. So white noise is a good thing. And choose comfort. You spend a third of your life in or on the mattress. And so if you're going to be on the mattress a third of your life, make it a very comfortable thing. Everybody wants to know, should I have a hard mattress? Should I have a soft mattress? Have a mattress that when you lay down on it, it makes you go, ah, and it supports you. Those are the best things that you can do. So once again, keep it dark. I love blackout curtains. Keep it cool, 60 to 67 degrees. No noise, no light. Get rid of the alarm clocks with the big light displays on them and stuff like that, because those are the things that interrupt your sleep. So something that I forgot to mention in the previous section is if you cannot get your room down to that between up to 68 degrees, so 60 to 68 degrees, then you can actually get these new bed chillers, and they are awesome from what I hear. We can get our room cold enough, so that's not a problem. But you may need to think about something like that as something like a bed chiller if you can't get your room down to the temperature that is comfortable to sleep. Now let's talk about the pre-bedtime routine. So the pre-bedtime routine actually starts in the morning when you get up. You have to get your eyes open and out in the morning sun. That helps hit the pre-chiasmatic nucleus, stuff you don't care about. It helps set the circadian rhythm. And so when you get out and you get those blue wavelengths from the sun into your eyes, then that starts to tell the brain, A, what time it is, and B, it starts to reset your body's circadian rhythm. And that has been shown to help with cortisol. That's been shown to help with sleep for that night. And so it's very important to realize that that is actually what starts the sleep cycle. Now, closer to bedtime, let's explain something here real quick. Money time sleep is between the hours of 10 at night and 2 in the morning. That time right there is when your body makes all of its hormones and it does its thing. So it's very important to be asleep before 10 o'clock. So as we're starting to look at the time before you're actually asleep, so let's start to talk about that 5 to 7:30 time. First thing to do is limit blue screens. In other words, limit television. Turn the TV off. Listen to some music. Light candles. I know it sounds weird, but it actually works. Get rid of the stimulation of the blue light. That includes phones, that includes iPads, that includes televisions. If you can do that, then you're really setting yourself up for a good night's sleep. Next is practice relaxation techniques. I wouldn't go into a full-blown meditation, but doing some 4-7-8 breathing, just calming down, sitting down and talking about the day, being in a cooler, darker room, catching up with your kids and seeing what they have to say. These are all things that allow you, A, to get closer. And it has been shown time and time again that when we have that unity and that family closeness, there is safety that is perceived, especially by females. And so everybody sleeps better. Next, avoid stimulants. I typically do not drink caffeine or coffee after noon. I am a slow metabolizer of caffeine, and you may be a slow metabolizer of caffeine. Regardless, even if you're not a slow metabolizer of caffeine, drinking stimulants before bed does disrupt sleep. It's been shown time and time again. You can get an Oura ring and test it for yourself. Even drinking alcohol disrupts your sleep. So I definitely wouldn't be drinking stimulants, and I definitely wouldn't be drinking alcohol to help sleep. The things you can do is do like an herbal tea. Um, get a valerian root tea, sleepy time tea. There's all kinds of things that are very mild that once you get into this routine and you're training your body that this is the time to shut down, it'll start to do it automatically. And then the sleep comes naturally. And last but not least, I just kind of hit on it a little bit, is that schedule. The more that you can stick to a schedule, the body loves repetition. It loves to know when things are going to happen, and it will start to run and take those things over automatically. This next segment for sleep is on diet and nutrition. It's very, very important. If you are on a diet of simple carbohydrates, high sugar, high fast food, high caloric foods with very little nutrition, you are going to have a very hard time getting good sleep. And so we really need to think about every meal of the day, not just those towards the end of the day. But as my mentors have told me, and I'm going to tell you, you want to eat breakfast like a king. And so you want protein and you want good fat. You want that meal to be the heaviest meal of the day. And this is because this is when your body is most insulin sensitive. You are breaking the fast. And so as you do that, you want to break the fast with good food so that you don't increase an insulin response, increase sugar, all of that jazz, because that's not what the body wants. And then as you go to the meal towards the end of the night, you want to try to have eaten everything 3 hours before you go to bed. So if you're like me and you're going to bed between 8 and 9 o'clock, the last meal of the day is at that 5 to 6 time limit. If you can't do that, just try to have your meal as far away from when you actually go to sleep as you can. And so those meals, especially towards the end of the night, those meals are wonderful to have that are high in magnesium foods. Something light, spinach or a little bit of turkey for tryptophan, but avoid the heavy, heavy protein meals. We typically are doing something really light, a little piece of protein about the size of the palm of the hand, and the rest of it's typically usually greens. And it might be some sauteed onions, it might be some sauteed spinach, it might be whatever it is. It's not a big, heavy meal. And we try to make that, like I said, 3 hours away from the previous meal. And so things to be wary of that will kind of indicate to you that insulin is coming into play and could be one of the things that is disrupting your sleep. Because if insulin is high, it disrupts sleep, it disrupts your hormones. Insulin will oxidize cholesterol, and then you can't make your testosterone and your estrogens and things of that nature. So if you get hangry, that's a sign that you have high insulin and you're insulin resistant. If you're falling asleep after the meals, that's a sign that your insulin is too high. Be aware of those. If those two things are happening to you, you should get a fasting insulin level to see how you're doing, where you're at, and what your insulin levels are doing. Next section, let's talk about exercise. Exercising regularly. And ideally, you exercise in the first half of the day, between the hours of like 8 and noon or 2, because that gives your body time to wind down. But 30 minutes of regular exercise. It doesn't have to be the gym. It doesn't have to be CrossFit. It just needs to be a good walk. Something that starts to make you sweat a little bit. That way, your body will actually start to clean itself, because when you sweat, you get rid of toxins. And the next thing is it starts to allow the body to relax afterwards, and it wants to go into that parasympathetic phase. Don't do intense exercises close to bedtime, but get out in the morning and do 10 to 15 minutes of walking there, and then later in the day do another 10 to 15 minutes of walking, and there's your 30 minutes. Stay hydrated, drink electrolytes. I'm not talking about Gatorade. I'm talking about real electrolytes. In my coffee, I actually put some of the Celtic sea salt in there. And that way I'm getting electrolytes. And you want to have those electrolytes because as Americans, we are typically very nutrient deficient. And so those are some very simple things that you can start. And if those help you with your sleep, fabulous. But if they're not helping you with your sleep, then you may have some bigger issues that you do need to tackle. And that's when you need to see somebody like me. Let's recap this real quick. Understand your sleep cycles. Try to get to bed as early as you can, and then know that that's 90 minutes. And that first part of that 90 minutes in my first hour is deep sleep. And then it never repeats throughout the night. So that's very important that I try to make sure that hour is outside of that 10 and 2, because 10 and 2 is when I make my hormones. And honestly, at 54 years of age, I can sit there and say, I actually still produce a lot of muscle mass. I can start working out and I can watch my muscle mass increase when I do my bioimpedance analysis. And I can see that I still gain muscle very, very easily. And that's because I watch what I eat. I get my good sleep. I make sure I support my hormones. And a lot of this has to do with that sleep. Understanding that 90-minute cycle and knowing when there's light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep, and supporting those as best I can. The next thing is making sure the lights are dim. I wind down. I can't express how much diet plays a part in your ability to sleep. Because if you don't drink and you drink, you can tell that that one excursion into alcohol affects you for 2 to 3 days. Um, Things to try tonight. Tonight when you get ready for bed, try dimming the lights. Go without television. Maybe sit down and play a relaxing game of cards or a board game if you're not overly competitive. Something just fun that lets you wind down. Start small. Pick one thing that I talked about: cold room, nightly routine, a meditation, something like that. And start to get consistent over time. That consistency is key. Start small, pick one thing, make it a habit, and then pick the next thing. And most of all, have sweet dreams tonight.